Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the March 2024 City Development Delegated Committee. I declare the meeting open at 6:33 p.m. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Kulin Nation, and we offer our respects to the elders of these lands and through them to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. Just to remind everyone, I kindly remind everyone to switch off your phones or turn them to silent for the duration of the meeting. I'd like to advise the gallery that this meeting is being recorded and will be available on Council's website. All care is taken to maintain your privacy, however your presence may be recorded. In accordance with Council's governance rules, meetings may not be photographed, filmed or recorded without the consent of the Chief Executive Officer. CEO, do we have any requests?
No, Chair, no requests.
Thank you very much. Councillors, are there any apologies for tonight's meeting? Seeing as we have a full quorum, I think not. Leaves of absence. Councillors, are there any leaves of absence requests?
Yes, there are.
Councillor Carter.
After 15 and a half years.
How could you? Councillor Carter, for what period to what period would you be away?
The 29th of April to the 29th of March to the 29th of April, councillors. I've got long service leave at work and obviously 15 years here and would like to take a month off.
Thank you very much. Just waiting for governance.
Excuse me, through the chair.
Yes, Councillor Clark.
Is she allowed?
Absolutely, Councillor Clark. After 15 years, I think we should give her 15 months.
Not a bad.
I wouldn't want to be saying that.
So you need to get someone to
Yes.
move it.
Councillor Lamb, I'll call for Councillor. Move the motion, Councillor Lamb.
Second.
Do I call for Councillor second to the motion? Councillor Clark. Councillor, put the motion to the vote. All those in favour?
Do I vote?
Yeah.
Ooh.
We've never done this
No,
before.
probably we haven't done this before. But
Governance is saying yes.
Okay, yes.
Yes. And I
Okay.
call the motion carried.
like
Any
to
councillors
vote on your
against? I
own
think
motion.
not.
Okay.
Councillors, in accordance with the Local Government Act 2020, I ask if any councillors have a conflict of interest in relation to any of the agenda items tonight. Councillors, there are no conflicts of interests. In that case, I'll move to public question time. I'll now explain how public question time will work. There are two opportunities for members of the public to participate in tonight's meeting. The first is public question time, and the second is requests to address the committee. Addresses to the committee will be heard immediately prior to consideration of each item. We'll now move to public question time, which is for a period of 15 minutes, and I'll take this opportunity to explain how it will work. This is the only time questions of the public will be accepted at this meeting, save and except for the addresses of the committee. Members of the public are asked to submit their questions prior to the commencement of the meeting. Any matter can be raised so long as it is in accordance with Council's governance rules. A maximum of 3 questions per person is permitted, and as chair, I will decide who answers the questions. Public question time, again, is limited to 15 minutes unless an extension of public question time is resolved by Council. I will note it's ordinarily extended on a regular basis. CEO, are there any questions
Yes.
for Council?
Yes, Chair. So we have 3 questions from Samantha Meredith. The first question is, what infrastructure improvements is the Council considering to enhance safety in the Footscray CBD, particularly in areas prone to criminal activities, such as improved lighting and better public spaces?
Ms. Haddock, I might ask you to address this one, please.
Certainly. Council has undertaken several public realm improvements in the Footscray CBD in the past and plans to continue with incremental upgrades subject to available budget. Projects completed in the last financial year include upgrades to Byron Plaza with new lighting, seating and landscaping, Delmahoy Street with a complete reconstruction of the road as a shared space with seating and tree planting, and installation of the Nicholson Street play space, a temporary installation to attract families with small children to the area. This financial year there will be upgrades to Blackstone Lane to provide a more inviting pedestrian space with a new lighting installation in Nicholson Street between Paisley and Irving Streets. In terms of longer term projects, Council is working with the State Government to centralise buses in the Footscray CBD along Irving Street, allowing direct connections between buses, trains and trams. Once buses are removed from Paisley Street, a complete reconstruction of the street can take place, with new drainage, extended footpaths and more greening. This project is subject to state government funding for the relocation of the buses. Council is also working with the state government on the upgrade of the Route 82 tram, which will provide opportunities along the route for more pedestrian-friendly streets and tree planting.
Thank you, Chief. Are there any further questions? from Ms.
Yes.
Meredith?
The second question is there a plan to work on urban design elements to deter criminal activities and improve the overall safety of public spaces in Footscray CBD?
I might ask the most appropriate director for this one. Who would that be, Ms.
It
Haddock?
would be Laura Jo Milan, the Planning and Environment Director.
May I please ask you to address the committee?
Yep, through the chair. As mentioned in the previous answer, there was a few projects that are underway, and all of these incorporate urban design upgrades, which will seek to activate the public realm for both daytime and nighttime activities. Furthermore, Council continues to work with the owners of key sites and the developers of key sites within the Footscray CBD to commence their approved developments, or either through starting construction, cleaning up the site, or looking at interim uses to activate the area, such as the popular Rudimentary Cafe on Donald Street. The key sites include the Forges site, Paint Spot, Little Saigon Market, and Council is also working with small business owners to remove to improve the shop fronts and deter graffiti, and provide more level at street activation.
I might just add a touch to and that includes our council's work with the local Footscray Traders Associations, including the Footscray Asian Business Association as well. So there's a lot of collaborative works in the mix. Ms. Haddock, are there any further
Thank you,
questions?
Chair. Yes, how does the Council plan to incorporate urban design elements that enhance safety, particularly in places like Nicholson and Paisley Streets in Footscray CBD, to discourage criminal activities after dark?
I might ask our Director of Infrastructure to address this one. Oh, sorry, Jamalane.
Planning and
Planning
Environment.
Sorry. Oh, I said that so confidently as well.
Thank you, Chair. As mentioned in the previous answers, all these projects have the aim of increasing activity throughout the day within Footscray CBD to deter antisocial behaviour and improve activation. Streetscape upgrades will also involve other elements that align with Council strategies, including the Footscray Structure Plan, the walking strategy, the urban forest strategy, and the road safety strategy, and include elements such as lighting to try and improve safety.
Thank you, Laura Jo. Are there any further questions?
Yes, so Sharon Bentley asked the following questions. Firstly, regarding agenda item 6.1, 41 Wars Road, Maribyrnong Planning Permit Application, Attachment 1, that all communal facilities must be available to the entire development and not restricted to specific apartments and or owners' corporations. Is this part of the regulations governing the development?
Who'd be the most appropriate director for this
I
one?
could answer that, but we could add more from Planning and Environment.
Yes, please.
So the clause 58 of the Maribyrnong Planning Scheme sets out the minimum requirements for apartment developments. Conditions of permit regulate how the development is used, so need to look at the conditions of permit. The next question is, I note there is no solution available for charging of electric vehicles. In view of the growing demand for these, what is being done to provide for these?
Ms. Haddock, no, Ms. Laura Jo, could you please address this one?
Yep, through the chair. So the sustainability management plan that was provided with the application states that the development will provide at least one car parking space for electrical vehicle charging. Condition 8B of the proposed plan and permit that's before Council tonight for consideration requires the sustainability management plan to be amended to confirm and explain how car parking is designed to allow for 100% electrical vehicle charging in the future, should further charging stations be installed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you. And the third question there is, can you please explain more about the allocation of affordable housing and how and by whom will this be managed?
I assume... Chief Executive,
I'll start with it if that's all right. As required by condition 29 of the recommendation, affordable housing will be allocated and managed through an agreement with an affordable housing provider registered with the state government. The condition allows for the provision of affordable housing through several ways, including the sale of housing at a discount to the market rate or the transfer of dwellings directly to the nominated housing provider at no cost. If a planning permit is issued, the site owner will be required to work directly with prospective affordable housing providers. And we have another question, Chair. So Anna Marie Schuler asked the following questions. Firstly, regarding agenda item 6.1, I'm sorry, did you? No. Okay. Regarding agenda item 6.1, 41 Wars Road, Maribyrnong planning permit application, if the council permits the developer to use Horizon Drive for construction, vehicle access to the construction site, what measures have the council established to ensure the developer mitigates and repairs damage caused to the Horizon Drive road and complex? And we might get Planning and Environment Director.
Yes, please. Laura Jo.
Thank you, Chair. Condition 18 of the recommendation requires the permit holder to prepare a construction management plan prior to the commencement of any works. This construction management plan must provide details of on-site access, parking and traffic management during the construction. Horizon Drive itself is a private road, and the potential for damage arising from the property during construction are outside of the scope of the planning process. However, the owners of the land proposing to develop have obligations under the Building Act 1993 to protect adjoining property from potential damage. Necessary protection and rectification works are dealt with by the appointed building surveyor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Director. Are there any further questions?
The next question from Anna Marie is, what is the garbage management and collection plan for the new development at 41 Wars Road?
Now, who would be best for this one?
I think
Chief.
Laura,
Oh,
Planning and
Laura
Environment.
Jo, very popular tonight.
Thank you, Chair. So all the waste collection is proposed to be undertaken by a private waste collector and will occur on site and within the basement and car park area within the proposed development. All the waste collection will occur in accordance with the approved waste management plan. No waste collection will occur within the surrounding or adjoining street networks, including Horizon Drive. Thank you, Chair.
The third question from Anna Marie is, we have heard of recent asbestos discovery on the construction site at 41 Wars Road. If this is so, what treatment has been undertaken?
Laura Jo Milan, I believe this might be up your alley.
Through the Chair. So if any asbestos is found on site, asbestos removal and disposal is regulated by the Environment Protection Agency and WorkSafe. All asbestos must be removed in accordance with the WorkSafe requirements and disposed in accordance with EPA requirements. So it will be managed by the regulators if there's any on site.
Thank you very much, Director.
Now we have three questions, Chair, from Christopher Gallagher. The first one is regarding agenda item 6.1, 41 Wars Road, Maribyrnong planning permit application. Where have you allowed for additional visitor car parking spaces when the development will bring in additional traffic? The submitted plans allow for 11 visitor parking spaces. How will this be monitored to prevent residents using those places?
I believe Laura Jo, once again, please.
Thank you, Chair. So whilst not a specific requirement of the Maribyrnong planning scheme, the proposal does, as the questioner stated, provide visitor car parking. The Owners Corporation and Building Management will be responsible for ensuring visitor car parking spaces are not used for any other purposes, and any on-street parking issues will be investigated and managed by Council as appropriate.
The second question is, how will construction vehicles and workers gain access to the construction site at 41 Wars Road? What plans does the developer and or the council have to regulate and control the increased traffic around Horizon Drive and Wars Road?
Might once again refer to our Director for Planning Environment, please.
Thank you, Chair. As previously mentioned, condition 28 of the recommended planning permit requires the permit holder to prepare a construction management plan. The construction management plan, as previously stated, must provide details of things such as on-site access, parking and traffic management during the construction period. In terms of some of the proposals, the Department of Transport and Planning and Council's Transport and Engineering team have reviewed the proposal, and both are satisfied that the increase in vehicle movements from the site can be accommodated within the existing road network. Thank you.
Another 15 minutes.
Councillor Lamb's moving extension of time.
Second.
Seconded, Councillor Clark. This brings your councillors. Put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Okay, the motion carried.
Thank you, Chair. The third question from Mr Gallagher is, if the council permits the developer to use Horizon Drive for access of construction vehicles to the construction site, what measures have been established to ensure the developer mitigates and repairs damage caused to Horizon Drive and environs, and that Horizon Drive is kept free of dirt, soil and litter during construction?
Director of Planning and Environment, please.
Thank you, Chair. Again, referring to condition 28, which requires a construction management plan. In addition to the elements previously mentioned, the construction management plan also requires the permit holder to provide details of the control of sediment, dust and soiling on the roadways during the construction period. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Chair, we have some further questions from Neha Malik.
Please.
And Neha asks regarding agenda item 6.1 attachment 1, referencing item 28 on the agenda attachment, construction management plan, the council is requested to please provide details of contents of the plan for each of the 17 elements, in brackets A to Q, listed under this item.
I believe this question might have been answered, although worded differently, might have been answered before, but Director for Planning and Environment, I believe.
Through the Chair, so we did talk about some of the elements that are included in it, but the construction management plan itself is a condition on the permit, and those plans are only prepared if the proposal is approved by council and once the building contractor is appointed.
Thank you very much, Director.
And the second question here is, currently around 400 plus bike spots are planned for 41 Wars Road. Can some of the bike spots be converted to car spots, in brackets, in light of two facts/data points? More than 90% of Melbourne's households have at least one car, and in the current Horizon Drive complex with 198 dwellings, there are only approximately 50 bikes owned by residents.
I'll refer this one to the Director for Planning and Environment.
Thank you, Chair. So the development proposal actually exceeds the requirements of the Maribyrnong planning scheme, for both car and bicycle spaces. Specifically, there are 433 car parking spaces provided for the apartments, and then in addition to the bike spaces that were mentioned. And Council's integrated transport strategy, which is currently under review, and Maribyrnong planning scheme both seek to encourage active and public transport use in addition to private vehicle.
Just before we proceed, I will note as well that councils are very well aware of the ever-growing need to ensure there's a balance of car parking spots and bike spots. Indeed, Councillor Carter has noted on multiple prior developments her dismay with the fact that there is a reduction in the car parking spots, and has indeed advocated for an appropriate number for each of these developments. So we're very live to that fact, and council staff are also quite live to those concerns as well. So we do really appreciate that question.
The third question is, what allowance has been made for delivery vehicles and delivery management in the completed development at 41 Wars Road?
Director for Planning and Environment, please.
Sorry. A loading bay has been provided within the building to be utilised for loading and unloading of larger vehicles, such as when residents move in and out of the property. There would also be a visitor parking space provided for smaller deliveries. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Director.
We now have some questions from Samantha Linkick. The first one is regarding agenda item 6.1, 41 Wars Road, Maribyrnong planning permit application. What traffic management planning has been undertaken for during and post the construction period to manage the additional large volume of vehicles anticipated to be there in the Wars Road area?
I believe this question was previously answered, though worded differently again, but to the Director of Planning and Environment, if you could elaborate.
Through the Chair, as previously discussed, the construction management plan that's required by condition 28 of the permit will deal with the construction traffic and how that will be managed through the development phase. An assessment of the post-development traffic conditions was previously undertaken as part of the development plan approval process, and this assessment was based on a higher yield of approximately 500 dwellings, and that assessment found that the existing road network and intersections will continue to operate efficiently, which includes the Wars Road Horizon Drive intersection. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Director.
And Chair, another question from Ms Lekic. What vegetation planting plan has been established, and how will this allow to preserve views from the development at 41 Wars Road to the river and surrounds?
Laura Jo, if you could please.
Yep, through the Chair. So condition 4 of the proposed permit conditions require the preparation of a detailed landscape plan for the development. Pages 51 and 55 of the agenda specifically show the indicative locations for landscaping. including areas for canopy tree cover and deep soil planting in excess of what is required under the planning scheme for apartment developments. Noting that views from the subject site towards the Maribyrnong River are limited by existing development, including the apartment buildings along Horizon Drive.
Thank you
And the
very
third
much.
and final question, Chair, is what are the planned locations and area allocations for the water management infrastructure and maintenance shed/storage for the development at 41 Wars Road?
Director of Planning Environment, please.
Thank you, Chair. So the rainwater tanks that are proposed as part of the development provide for the on-site collection and reuse of stormwater and are located within the basement of the building. More specific detailed drainage matters will also be dealt with through the legal point of discharge and building permit approval processes, which are standard when you're progressing through a development process.
Thank you very much. I believe that is our last
That
question.
is the last question.
That being the case, I now call public question time to a close. We'll now move on to agenda item 5.1, confirmation of the minutes of the City Development Delegated Committee, meeting 27 February 2024. I call for Council to move the minutes of the City Development Delegated Committee, meeting held on the 27th of February 2024. Councillor Lamb.
Official recommendation that the City Development Delegation Committee confirm the minutes of the City Development Delegating Committee meeting held on the 27th of February 2024.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Mayor. Apologies. I'll call for Councillor to second the motion. Councillor Clark. Are there any questions or points of clarification, councillors? Would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Formally moved.
Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
Formally second.
Any speakers for or against? In that case, I'll put the motion to vote. All those in favour? And declare the motion carried. Moving on to agenda item 6.1, 41 Wars Road, Maribyrnong Planning Permit. Chief Executive Officer, do we have any requests to address the committee tonight?
Yes, Chair, we have two requests to address the committee. Could I invite Anne-Marie Schuler to address the committee for a maximum of 3 minutes? And if you would like to come up to the microphone, Ms. Schuler. And I hope that height is at the right level for you. Director Infrastructure might assist.
Okay, I think, thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Please.
Thank you.
Thank you. On the point of visitor parking, I want to point out that our resident and visitor car parking issue is very significant because there's going to be 400 apartments being built, and we have added in another 400 people getting visitors, and let's say that half of those residents are going to have 2 cars, that's another 200 cars. So we'll essentially lose existing visitor car parking spaces because we know more people will be using them. Take into consideration also the need for disabled parking. How are people who need access to the building but who have health issues, that people who have disabilities, I don't think that's been adequately considered. So also let's say that half of the residents are going to have not 1 car but 2 cars. Then we have another 200 cars. So we're essentially going to lose existing visitor car parking spaces for the residents already living on Horizon Drive because of this increased traffic, and we feel that there's nowhere near enough visitor parking spaces to accommodate for that increase. Also, where are the tradies going to park? Where are other people who come necessarily to visit going to park, like nursing staff and people who just need to be there and find somewhere to park for some period of time. Inevitably, we feel that the people who already live on Horizon Drive are going to be forced to park wherever they can find a park, and that's going to be very difficult. The traffic congestion, we know that with the increased population coming into Horizon Drive, we believe there's going to be significant congestion. I know that there has been a traffic assessment done, but I'm not sure what time of the day that was done, but you've only got to stand around the roundabouts at Horizon Drive at 5 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. It is heavily congested all the way down Wars Road all the way down Van Ness Avenue, bumper to bumper. It's crazy. And we just feel that more thought, more consideration needs to be given to the parking plans related to the new construction. So that, I think that's the main issue that I wanted to make. Let me see. The degradation of the existing private road, Horizon Drive, we feel that past experience has shown that there is considerable surface degradation on Horizon Drive, and we really want the developer to pay attention to the condition of the roads as this new development is being constructed. And we would like an assurance, because the road is going to be, receiving, Horizon Drive is going to be receiving heavy vehicles, construction vehicles, and there is certainly going to be damage done to the roads, because past experience has shown that in terms of 3 buildings having been constructed at Horizon Drive at the complex in the last 10 years. And we know that damage will occur, and we want an assurance that that there will be full restitution for the damage that occurs as a result.
Anna Marie, I'm so sorry to cut you off there. I do apologise.
Okay.
If you do have any further questions, please. We know you provided some here today, but if there's any more, please do send them through to us, and we'll be sure to address them. I will ask that the appropriate directors do provide a response in relation.
Thank you.
Councillors are voting on this later, so we aren't technically allowed to provide any real opinion or sort of suggestion as to how we might vote on this particular development. So I do apologise in advance, but thank you so much for your question. Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Chair. Can I just seek clarification with Horizon Drive, as it's a private road, who is responsible for its maintenance?
Anna Marie,
and upkeep?
if you want, you can just stay there, because it might be a question that you might want to have a response to later on. To the appropriate director, I believe.
The manager of city development.
Mr. Minetti, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, Horizon Drive is a private road, and it's privately managed by the owners' corporation. So any damage that's done currently would be the responsibility of the owners' corporation. But through the building process, there'll be what's called a protection notice that's issued on adjacent property, and in this case, that would include the road, to make sure that it's reinstated to the condition that it is before the construction commences, and that's a fairly standard process through the building permit.
Thank you, Mr. Ms. Minetti, can I ask that be provided, that response be provided to Ms. Shula as possible? Thank you, Councillor Carroll.
Just another question, perhaps, to the directors. Thank you very much for contribution. I think the issues raised are obviously important for consideration of council going forward, given that both of those issues, as well as some others, are going to be constant, given the proposed intensive development in that whole zone. So my question is vis-a-vis the other point made in the contribution, just about what provisions, existing provisions are in terms of disability parking, allocated parking, but also, if I suspect there are no provisions, but I mean, one of the issues we're having in other sort of concentrated development zones is a lot of older citizens who may not qualify for disability parking. What sort of provisions in terms of visitor parking, for example, are made available, or residential, car park permits, etc.
Mr. Minetti, if...
Certainly, through the chair, I can talk directly to this development. So the disability or disabled parking spaces aren't considered through the planning scheme. They're considered separately through the building permit process. So it's not something the council can directly get involved in there. But I do note that there are obviously around 30 odd spaces that are provided for visitors to the development, and that further consideration will be given through the building permit process regarding any DDA spaces that may be required.
Mr. Minetti, I believe Councillor Further. Thank you, Anna. Apologies for making you get back up. I just thought you might want to be there in case you had a response back to Mr. Minetti.
Well, I do actually have a response in relation to, I think you mentioned 30 extra car spaces, is that correct?
Oh, shit.
It's at around 30, correct?
Around 30. I'm not, is that correct? 11. No, it's actually 11 extra car parking spaces, not 30.
If that's the case,
Yeah,
Anna Marie,
of which,
if that's the case, might I suggest that you point that particular part out that you're referring to in some email correspondence to Mr. Minetti, and if he can provide some clarification in hard writing to you rather than just having.
of course.
And I think that would be a bit more appropriate for you, so that you have something in hard writing that you can refer to.
Who should I address that to?
Mr. Minetti, Ashley Minetti will be in touch with you, I believe.
Okay,
You
fantastic.
may be able to clarify it now, because I'm not sure that's correct.
So through the chair, and Ashley's just finding that report, those 11 are additional visitor spaces on top of the visitor spaces that were previously allocated, because there was an over-provision of spaces.
Right. So just, sorry, Laura Jo, if you could just clarify that once again, apologies. Or
Sorry.
Mr. Minetti.
Can Ashley say it? Sorry.
Again, I did say approximately because there's some surplus spaces that are above and beyond the planning scheme requirements. So that's outlined on page 30 of tonight's agenda. The exact mix of that will be determined through the detailed design process. So I can't give a specific numbers yet, but it's 11, at least 11, if I can put it that way, and somewhere between 11 and 30. So that's sort of the best clarification I can give at this stage.
Thank you, Mr. Minetti.
Okay.
Thank you, Anna Marie. Apologies. And again, actually, if we could just go into hard line with Anna Marie. If there is an appropriate email, please let us know, and we'll try and reach out to you as soon as possible.
Yes, my email address is
I'd assume so. That's what we have
Yes.
your questions tonight. Thank you.
yes, and just clarification on that, on
Of
the
course.
number of extra car parking spaces
Of course.
and
I'm sure we'll get that to you.
disability parking consideration. Okay, thank you.
I appreciate it. Not a problem at all. Are there any further?
Yes, Chair.
requests to address the committee?
If I could invite Paul Little on behalf of the applicant to address the committee for a maximum of 3 minutes. And Mr. Little, we might need to move your microphone up a bit. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Councillors and officers and members of the gallery as well. My name is Paul Little. I'm a planning consultant who has been retained by 41 Wars Road Proprietary Limited, who is the development entity for this project. And that entity is a subsidiary of Blue Earth Group, who are a prominent developer across metropolitan Melbourne. Firstly, I might say that the questions this evening, and indeed the questions that have been put, have been very articulate and have gone to some of the fundamental questions that one would expect through this process. And I want to acknowledge those questions as being well considered as they have been, plus also the responses that have been provided. We endorse those responses in every way, including the detail around construction management, which will be a really important aspect of this proposal. I just want to talk briefly about the strategic context of this site. It is almost 10,000 square metres located adjacent to the High Point Shopping Centre and forming part of the High Point Major Activity Centre. And the planning scheme, as it is established for this site, requires effectively a two-step process. The first step being the approval of a development plan, and the development plan approval process considers things at a reasonably high level, but in this case it was approved in October of 2022. As has been mentioned, it contemplated densities of between 450 and 550 dwellings on this site, and you'll be aware that this proposal is a number of dwellings less than that at 411. And that comes about through the design and arrangement of built form across the site, responding to the better apartment design standards, etc. The development plan also supported 10 stories of overall development form, which is prescribed within the scheme as being an appropriate scale for the site. The proposal, as it's been recommended, as I mentioned, is for 411 dwellings, and I'll have a little bit to say about housing supply in a moment. But importantly, in this case, the recommendation, which again we endorse wholly in terms of the conditions, which we've worked through with the council planning officers, both through the development plan and the permit application process, require us to enter into agreement to deliver affordable housing as part of this proposal. And that's an agreement we have come to without an obligation under the planning scheme, and something which I'd ask the councils to consider in the context of the need for additional housing, not just across Melbourne, but in this particular location. The proposal, in terms of its design response, meets all of the Clause 58 better apartment design standards as it's been recommended in the report, and includes the provision of car parking, bicycle parking, and indeed ESD measures which exceed the requirements of the scheme. And that's been, again, part of the process of engagement with officers, not just the planners, but also the traffic engineers and so forth, over the last 2 years or so. The site is, as we say, excellently located. It's strategically identified to deliver this form of housing supply, and with the coverage that exists within media, with the obvious need for additional housing, not just in this state but in each and every municipality, this proposal, through really clear engagement with the council planners, has the opportunity to deliver a really meaningful number of dwellings. And importantly, our client's commitment is to start this soon. There's a process for us obviously to engage with council and resolve approved plans, construction management details and so forth, but our client's committed to starting this project this year, and that's something which we ask you to consider in the context of housing supply matters in your municipality. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you very much, Paul. Councillors? No, I don't believe there's any other. Thank you very much, Paul. Ms. Haddock, are there any other requests to address the committee?
No further requests, Chair.
Thank you very much. That being the case, I'll call for councillor to move a motion in regard to agenda item 6.1. Councillor Carter.
As per the officer recommendation that the City Development Delegated Committee, 1, issue a planning permit for the building and works to construct a 10-storey building at 41 Wars Road, Maribyrnong, subject to conditions contained in attachment 1, and 2, note the delegation of the Manager of City Development the authority to settle any matter before the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal, which may arise as a result of the issuing of this planning permit.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I'll call for councillor to second the motion. Who? Councillor Crawford. Sorry, I had 3 hands go up all at the same time. Councillors, are there any questions or points of clarification? If not, would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Thank you. I find planning, particularly over the 15 years, as you've alluded to, Councillor Tran, when it comes to car parking, that is one of the greatest challenges we face. We know, we are a city that's growing exponentially, and how we manage that. And for the benefit of residents who have submitted questions tonight or are here in the gallery, and forgive me if you're aware of this, and it's repeating myself, sometimes we have people in the chamber for their first time. And when it comes to planning, the struggle really is, and there's parts I want to firstly commend this development, and I'm probably the hardest, toughest critic when it comes to any attempts to seek a waiver on car parking, and my track record shows that, because we know that the demographic of people moving into our city, they're coming with more cars. We know that. We actually know from the census data we have this huge challenge, but the challenge that we have in a planning forum is, as we know, councillors, we can't assess planning applications within the totality of what an area looks like and the demands on that infrastructure. We have to look at the site specifically, and that's where it gets quite difficult, because you can't say in this street there's this many and this is how many car spaces. We have to look at the application for the site and whether it's compliant, and this is compliant. We wouldn't be able, I would, and the first to say let's take it to VCAT if we've got a leg to stand on. I very much think if this was not approved on the basis of parking, we wouldn't get anywhere at VCAT, because it meets the requirements, and that's quite rare. Over the last 2 months, I have been appalled at some of the quality of developments that we've had come into this chamber that have proposed only 60% of apartments in developments as large as this. Only 60% get 1 car park. What does that mean in an equally, dense? And we have to look at the application on its own. So I applaud this development because it's a better design. They haven't gone for just the yield, and we know, I looked at apartments in Horizon Drive to buy. I ended up in Waterford Green, middle of last year, and the scale of some of the bedrooms, a 2-bedroom, you can't even get a double bed in it. It's got a sliding door because you can't open it. And it really, really kind of, irked me. So you've got car waving, a lot of people, we're seeing a trend in using the housing affordability, throwing in a bit, but how affordable is it to then negotiate waivers of car parking? We've seen some appalling developments come into the chamber, so I applaud this one because it is compliant, it is a quality design, and it does provide the required amount of car parking. going to that broader challenge, I flagged this at the last meeting, and there's a body of work that I want council to do to look at that bigger piece of work. We know that car ownership is increasing, we know that density is increasing, and I want to look at the impacts of that over 5 to 10 years, because I do see that dangerous trend in the chamber where we're seeing exponential growth, but a waiver of car spaces, and soon in the city of Footscray there won't even be a minimum requirement for car parking with new developments, which is just shocking. We know that, and what that creates for tension in communities, in suburbs and neighbourhoods. So I just want to say, for those that are here, those, you know, that testing, you know, development can be challenging. You'll have your councillors that you can reach out to. You know, planning will work through, if this is approved, that that building plan and how to best manage that. But this is a compliant application, and so I'd like to acknowledge the developers for the body of work that they've done, and commend the motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Would the second like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thank you. Again, I'd like to also thank the applicant and staff for bringing this to us. It's a good application. I must disagree with Councillor Carter that I don't think car parking is going to be our solution. This proposal could have 1,000 car parks, and the width of our streets is still going to be the same. So we need much better public transport. We need to get more people walking and riding, and yeah, providing more car parks isn't going to help that situation. But otherwise, good application, so fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Are there any other speakers for the motion? Councillor O'Gara, sorry. Please.
First of all, just say thanks to residents who came along and asked, as was mentioned, you know, those thoughtful, insightful questions, which are certainly issues that are going to be in front of us for some time in terms of this zone and the intensive development that, you know, we're going to experience in this particular, well, the whole of Maribyrnong, but certainly in that particular zone, the High Point Village zone. I wanted to expressly commend the developer for incorporating the housing affordability element to this proposal. And in particular, I suppose, say thanks for the way you couch that or spoke to that in terms of a sense of social responsibility, which, as everyone is aware, nationwide, you know, is of huge concern for so many people. Bit following on from Councillor Carter, just to say that it is something that I suppose myself, hopefully council as a whole, are looking for, and I hope this might be one some exemplars in this regard, because we're getting a number of other sorts of development proposals which are happy to use the language of affordable housing, gazetted as such, you know, by the state government, that allows for development proposals to come before us that get designated as affordable housing, but actually where both property prices and rental prices actually fall way above, not just a little bit above, but way above median prices on both counts, Maribyrnong wide. So I'm hoping this development, you know, might be the sort of exemplar where that doesn't occur, where instead we're actually looking at real affordable housing. I think it's obviously not really within the scope. It's something just for the developers to consider, but part of the affordable housing issue is also the question of management. I mean, hopefully that will be looked at. I know it's not something specified here, how that's going to be taken on, so that there is some sense of community, you know, control over those affordable housing lots, you know, dwellings. We've had a number of issues where affordable housing is handed over to so-called non-profits, corporatised bodies basically, that skimp on every cent in terms of the management of those social housing properties, and give no sort of empowerment to the people who, you know, are renting or maybe buying, mostly renting in those sort of affordable housing lots. I hope that that's sort of looked at as well as part of the provision. But yeah, thank you for the contributions.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kara. Any other speakers for the motion?
I did just have a question. I forgot when you asked questions or clarifications.
Councillor Thomas, please.
Apologies. It's about the affordable housing, the Section 173 agreement. It refers to an option B in there, but there's no option B listed, and so I'm just wondering whether that's just a typo or whether there is an option, something that. So I'm not entirely sure how it's going to work. Is that if somebody could add?
Looking at that now.
I think
on page 38 of the.
I can see the fury
agenda.
scrolling from here.
Sorry, I should have picked this up earlier, but I've just...
Councillor Clark, point of order.
Councillor Thomas, would you mind just pointing out where that might be?
So it's
Point of order.
condition 29 on page 38, so it's under the section 173 agreement. It refers to section 173 agreement, prior to certification, come to an agreement, then it's got 1, 2 and 3, but in that it refers to option B, and there's no option B. So it's sale of 5%, transfer of 1.5% of the number, or any other model that achieves the equivalent of option B. But I don't know whether option B is a different option, or whether it's just option A.
Yeah, apologies, councillor. That should read option 2. It's the next Roman numeral under that it should be referring to. So rather than option B, it's referring to the 1.5% underneath that.
Yep, so it's
So it should be A,
equivalent. Yeah. Okay.
I.
Yep. Good.
not
So
B.
there's nothing else that we should be thinking about. Yep. Okay. That's all right. Thank you.
No,
Apologies.
Any other areas you might have spoken to, Councillor? Thank you very much, Councillor Thomas. Any other speakers for the motion? Speakers against the motion? Before I put the motion to vote, I will also have a few words. I too would like to express my thanks both to the applicant's representative and to the community for being here. Thank you, Anne-Marie, for addressing the community tonight. That was greatly appreciated. I think I'll address it in sort of 3 main points on my end of it. The first being that I personally had flagged this probably at the previous council meeting, I think on the 20th of Feb. I remain quite critical as to what is defined as a social and affordable housing. Councillors had that same critique last week. Don't get me wrong, I am not, I do not blame the developer for this. I know that this is well over your control, indeed it sits in the hands of state government. But it still raises the question of what is to be deemed as social and affordable. But I do note this as well. The City of Maribyrnong has, for quite a number of years, carried its weight in respect of social and affordable housing. And Chief Executive, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief Executive Officer, correct me if I'm wrong, we sit as one of the top 3 councils in the state of Victoria to have the highest number of social and affordable housing.
Yes, that is certainly correct for social, and I think planning director's going to add to that.
Through the chair, I can clarify the figures. So certainly in terms of social housing, the City of Maribyrnong does have a higher than the state average. Whether we're number 3, I would have to double check. In terms of affordable housing for low to moderate income owners in particular in Maribyrnong is an issue at the moment that has to be addressed in terms of supply.
Thank you. But again, I'll still go back to my point. We are continuously trying to carry away with this, and I do appreciate the assistance of developers in ensuring that our municipality has that typography, that diversity in options for our residents in terms of social and then separately affordable housing as well, especially considering the housing crisis, which was mentioned before. So I do appreciate that. Also, I commend the balance that's trying to be sought in relation to the parking spots. So I have to go to Councillor Crawford and Councillor Carter's point. The City of Maribyrnong has been identified as a 20-minute city, and what that means is that it's been identified as a city that you can take a train or a bus or a tram or walk to your local supermarket within 20 minutes. Whilst I know that that is possible for many of us who are able-bodied, and absolutely to no offence to anyone that's aged or indeed has suffered from a physical disability, for those of us as we do get older and as we do suffer from physical and indeed mental disabilities, it is a struggle, and I completely acknowledge that fact. Indeed, that was asked in one of the questions before about disabled parking as well. Mr. Mitty did address that. It is not lost on councillors that is the reality of life. There are residents who will struggle to go from Wars Road to High Point, Wars Road to the Coles up on the other side of High Point, or indeed up into Avondale Heights even, or to see friends who live in suburbs nearby. It's not lost on us. It's also not lost on us that public transport sometimes is just not an option for all variety of reasons, whether it be mobility reasons or indeed just accessibility. I know from that particular roundabout, it is quite difficult to get to a tram stop all the way down the hill. I take that tram every day, so I know what it looks like. And though we are doing our very best to improve public transport in the area, we know that that will still be a challenge for residents, as I said before, to get to public transport. As such, we appreciate developers such as the one that we have in front of us today, who have continued to work alongside council to ensure that there is ample opportunity for residents who live in these certain types of developments to have access to alternative forms of transport, whether it be your bikes or indeed in this situation, as we have discussed, cars. So again, I do really appreciate that. And I do really appreciate the residents' concerns in ensuring that they have access, not just them specifically, but people like themselves, more importantly, have access to, well, accessible means of transportation. Apologies, councillors, that was a bit long. Seeing as everyone has spoken, I'll put the motion to the vote. Councillors, all in favour? And I declare the motion carried. Moving on to agenda item 6.2, 204 Churchill Avenue, Braybrook, in brackets, Caroline Chisholm Catholic College. Chief Executive Officer, are there any requests to address the committee tonight?
No, Chair, I have no requests to address the committee.
Thank you very much. I'll call for council to move a motion regarding to agenda item 6.2. Councillor, Mayor, if you could please.
Yeah, okay. Recommendation that the City Development Delegation Committee, number 1, resolve to advise the Minister for Planning that it support the proposed vet and STEM building at 204 Churchill Avenue, Braybrook, subject to the condition outlined in attachment 1. And number 2, note that the manager City Development will forward this decision and internal referral comments to the Minister for Planning via the Department of Transport and Planning.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I'll call for councillor to second the motion. Councillor Thomas. Are there any questions or points of clarification, councillors? No? Would the member like to speak to the motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, only briefly. Councillor, I am speaking today in support of this report. As we all know, the population within the Maribyrnong City Council continuing to rapidly grow. The site has been developed and used as an education centre since the 1960s. As our education system grows and the need of the younger generation change, supporting such a development like this for a school will help supporting our younger generation. The proposing development building incorporating within the CCCC site aligned with the strategy and objective of the Clause 21.10 of the Maribyrnong Planning Scheme. So the development of the non-government school will supplement the existing education facility within the council area. So therefore, Councillor, I commend this motion to you.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, look, only to say that, you know, these kinds of, like the STEM curriculum and having a dedicated space for that will be really good because particularly hopefully for the girls at the school or because STEM is notoriously has low ratios of girls and women involved. So I'm hoping that perhaps, you know, this will give a bit of a push to the young women at the school to test out their STEM appetite and, you know, perhaps go on to some STEM careers after they finish school.
I'll be excited. Thank you very much, Councillor. Are there any other speakers for the motion? Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, councillors. Look, I just want to speak briefly about the opportunities of having this facility in the district in the Braybrook precinct. I think we really need to understand, and I think the point's well made by Councillor Thomas about actually having access to STEM facilities, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and having a facility that actually will address the vocational education training needs, but not just of a general community, a community that is in desperate need of access to these type of buildings, these type of education opportunities. You know, not everyone is going to want to go to university and get a degree. And I think the reality is, and if anyone's actually tried to get a tradesperson, being able to access a course where trades is a fundamental focus, that's a great thing. That's providing opportunities in an area that is only going to grow. You know, councillors, this country needs more than just service industry. We need science, we need technology, and we need males and females and trans people and anyone else who wants to access these services to be able to do so. But services, buildings that are first class, buildings that actually meet the need of the community. I think that this is a wonderful opportunity, and I'm so pleased that it's built here in Maribyrnong, and most particularly being built in the wilds of Braybrook. I can only commend the state government and all those who've been a party to this particular development, and I'd like to thank those at the Carolyn Chisholm College who may have been in any way at all involved in the development of this site. I can only commend the motion to you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Are there any other speakers for the motion? Speakers against the motion? Before I put the motion to vote, I'd also like to say a few words. I had the luxury of visiting Caroline Chisholm Catholic College, or as colloquially referred to for those in my generation, 4C. I had the luxury of visiting them and indeed visiting their student representative body, and saw the plethora of talent in respect of future leaders there. A lot of them studying STEM, it just so happens. And upon reflection, I was taken back because my own mother and my father both did STEM, and both indeed are individuals who participate in STEM careers now, even to today. I reflect on that because it comes clear to me that these opportunities are so crucial, especially in our community, one that is multiculturally diverse, and more importantly than that, one that continuously welcomes new migrants to our city, more frequently than not. Though we are becoming more gentrified, I do acknowledge, we continue to receive an influx of international residents and indeed new migrants who now call our city home. Indeed, I believe Councillor Lamb had at one stage, I think last month, Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, you had 3 citizenship ceremonies in the span of one day, which welcomed approximately 30 new citizens per session. Am I wrong saying that?
40.
40 per session, so 120 new citizens. That does not include the children who are yet to come from those particular citizens and residents. And indeed, some of them who were also children became citizens as well. As you can see, we're clearly experiencing a massive influx of migration, and as acknowledged by Dr. Chalmers as well, migration is the largest part of our economy at this stage in time. Providing opportunities is so crucial. In STEM, in vet, in trades, in all trades. So I could not commend this anymore, and I do hope that the students of 4C, that their advocacy continues to flow on throughout the school, continues to flow into their management, and hopefully that is just one part of their future developments. I commend the motion, councillors. Councillors, I'll now put the motion to vote. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. Councillors, move on to agenda item 6.3, Heritage Victoria nomination, Yarraville Railway Station Complex. Are there any requests to address the committee, Chief Executive Officer? No. I think not. I'll call for Councillor move a motion regarding agenda item 6.3. Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Chair. Councillors, I move that the City Development Delegated Committee 1 note the nomination of Heritage Victoria that the Yarraville Railway Station Complex be included in or on the Victorian Heritage Register, brackets VHR in brackets, as a place of state-level cultural heritage significance, as shown at attachment 1, and 2, endorse the submission to the Heritage Council of Victoria in support of the Yarraville Railway Station Complex nomination to the VHR shown at attachment 2. Councillors, I commend the motion to you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I'll call for Councillor to second the motion. Councillor Crawford. Are there any questions or clarification, councillors? Would the mover like to speak to the motion?
No, just briefly, Chair, councillors, this is a fabulous motion that we get to speak to, if only briefly, here this evening. Some 12 years after the proclaiming of the mighty city of Footscray in 1859, in 1871, the station at Yarraville opened with the first train coming through that station. And the station functioned very much as a major passenger hub and freight centre for metropolitan Melbourne. What we have here today, councillors, at Yarraville Station and its surrounds is a slice of history that will never be repeated. The buildings, which were completed around 1880s and are absolutely unique, not too different, if you like, from the Yarraville Community Centre in Francis Street. Again, slices of history that we will never see again. Already, this railway precinct is on Council's Heritage Register, but now the state have seen fit to include it as buildings of state cultural significance. It's a great recognition of our history, councillors. You know, the Yarraville precinct, the Yarraville village, of which I know many people often find themselves very frustrated in trying to drive through, because in fact the village was built for horse and dray, not for cars. A wonderful thing that we still retain our history by having the heritage overlay in the Yarraville precinct. I think for me, in having the state acknowledge, taking on board the recommendation that the station be part of this state, nay, this country's history in a formal fashion, goes a long way in further cementing our city, and particularly the Yarraville precinct, as a place of great significance for us all and for generations to come. Councillors, I commend the motion to you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
Formally seconded.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Are there any other speakers for the motion? Speakers against the motion? If not, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? And I declare the motion carried. Councillors, we now move on to councillor question time. Councillors, before I read out the governance rules, Rule 53.5, are there any questions, councillors? If not, I'll call a close to council question time before it even begins.
Nicely done.
Councillors, is there any urgent business to be addressed tonight? If not, I say clear there's no urgent business. Councillors, that is the end of our meeting. I now declare that the meeting is closed at 7:35.